back to the Spiritual Activist. We've got an extraordinary panel here with us today. I'd like to welcome Andrea DiLorenzo from Soul Fulfilled. How are you, Andrea?
Hi, lovely, lovely, really good.
Beautiful.
How are you, Michael?
I am excellent. Thank you for asking, Andrea. I appreciate that. I am Michael Mataluni from Kick-Ass Dad. We've also got David Pagan from Kick-Ass Dad. How are you, David?
I'm good, brother.
Fantastic. Does your bottom third say Captain Awesome?
If it has my official title, yes.
That's new. I didn't realize. Okay. We've got Rahul Bhambhani. Welcome, Rahul from The Invincible Man. How are you today, sir?
Nice. I'm well. Much better than last week.
Excellent, excellent. And we've got the lovely Kelly Marceau from kellymarceau.com. How are you, Kelly?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
No, it's great to have you. I had an opportunity to do a little research on you today, and you've got an extraordinary blog and website. And will you kind of tell us a little bit about what you're going for, what the idea is behind it, and how it's kind of blossomed for you?
It wasn't planned, I'll tell you that much. It wasn't like I sat down and had this idea that just came to the surface, and I was like, I want to be this. It sort of kind of captured me. It all started with sitting down with a bunch of women one night and listening to them. I feel like I've heard this common theme with women over and over and over again. And I wanted to write something. I wanted to document the anger, the frustration, the feelings, and sort of put it out there. And I ended up writing this article that I didn't even edit. I didn't really think that anybody was going to see it. And it went viral. And about, I think, like 450,000 people were trafficking my website in 3 days. And it sort of put me on the map as this consciously awake woman. And I guess I coined that, not really realizing like what I was doing, because I was trying to think about how I see myself and how I feel like I'm different than the average woman in the sense that I can own my shit. I do my shadow work. I actually am easy to talk to, and just that for the most part I'm not just an unconscious woman just sort of like moving through life. And I wanted to sort of put that out there. And when I did, it got a huge response. It got a massive response from a lot of people. And so now I'm sort of in this like conscious awake woman man movement, and I love it because the people, like, for example, I'm getting to talk to you people right now, which I wouldn't have ever done that probably had I not just opened my big fat mouth. You know?
I appreciate that, and I think we could all say the same thing for ourselves, right? We're you know, we start to have these ideas, these you know, this consciousness come to us, and then unless we really start to step out of our comfort zones and open our big fat mouths, it just kind of sits inside. So I certainly commend you for doing what you're doing. And real quick, I just want to get to, you said you were sitting around and listening to a bunch of women bitching about men. What was the what's the common theme there? What's the common thread?
The common thread is the feeling that men don't value emotional growth in the same way that women do, that no matter how often a woman tries to express to a man what she needs or what she needs to grow or expand in a relationship, that most men, they kind of like, you know, in one ear they listen, but they don't really pay attention, or they don't really care, or they don't really actually get to the root of like what a woman is really talking about. Kind of like women don't feel heard. And so I basically, you know, stepped out like on this scene to just sort of to say to men in general, like, you know, hey, this is what women are feeling. And, you know, one of the things that I really wanted to do in this article was I wanted to say something that was true for me, which is I don't like the whole feminist movement that has tried to like excommunicate men and the need of men. Like, we've moved into this whole reality of like no need, like that somehow not having needs means strength, and I don't think that that's strength at all. I think that's totally denying like our basic truth. And so I wanted to actually write something where I was telling men on one level, like, we need you to show up, and like this is what we need. And so that's sort of, you know, what I did. Like, I was listening to women go on and on and on, but like women don't have the solution for what they're looking for. And so I wrote this article out of just like, you know, listening to that and also my own experience and what I really wanted to say to men. And so I said two things. I basically was just like, we need you, and we need you to value emotional growth, to grow yourselves as men. Yeah, so that's what I did.
Bam, that's awesome.
And I got, you know, people who really loved it, people who really hated it. You know, some people were just like, how dare you? You know, you're so angry, you're so mean. And I'm like, really? Because that's what really people feel, that they don't maybe say. You know, it's just kind of crazy to me that women can sit there with all their friends and tell their friends the truth about what they feel, but then they can't say it to a man because a man just doesn't want to hear it, or they don't want to deal with it, or whatever. And it's not every man, but this seems to be a common theme with, you know, even men who are like successful and techier. It doesn't matter what you do in life. Like, it's true. A lot of men don't value emotional growth, and it's a problem.
Yeah,
Well,
and
most men, can I speak as a man? Am I allowed to do that?
I think that was the call, David. I think you were called to do so.
No, we were when we were on our way here. Actually, we were kind of speaking to that same thing. Where Mike, you had mentioned you were playing golf, and some guys complained about the colors of the hole numbers and that they were purple. You know, and the guys looked at it and they were like, "Look, what's with all these purple signs? You know, like what's all that about?" And first of all, why would you be angry? Why would that even occur to you? You know, to be upset about something like that. And quite frankly, I mean, from a man, I remember when I, you know, kind of felt like this as well. You see that, and then a little part of you, as a human being, I don't care if you're man, woman, or what, sees it and is like, oh wow, purple, that's a really cool color. And then the guy stops and goes back to his programming and goes, wait a second, what do you mean you like colors? You know, what are you, a homo? You like colors. You know, and then you want to attack it. You want to attack it because you want to deny the fact that you even thought it was attractive. Otherwise, you wouldn't have noticed it, right? So men typically, you know, we're just kind of, I don't want to say hardwired because we're not, because, you know, little boys aren't like that. But as we become men, we're kind of programmed into shutting that stuff down. So even, I remember I made huge strides. I mean, this was with my ex-wife, actually, but I learned a better way to communicate, and it was through expressing how certain things made me feel. And it wasn't the most macho conversation that I ever got to have. You know, it didn't feel like it anyway. And now I understand that there's a certain amount of power behind that. For one, because it gave me the ability to communicate with the opposite sex. Because in loose terms, you know, they speak in feelings, you know what I mean? And sometimes I told a friend of mine, he was like, yeah, no one seems to understand me. You know, most men don't seem to understand me. And I was like, well, maybe that's because no one's listened to you long enough, you know? So I've learned to listen a little longer, to let that thought reach its finality instead of cutting it off because all I hear is, yeah, feeling, you made me feel this or whatever. Let it go through. Please forgive me for going yeah. At the time, that's what it sounded like, you know. But I learned to listen to the end and then realize, okay, she's expressing how something that I did or something that we saw or experienced made her feel. I have the same feelings, I just express them differently, in anger or being pissed off or disrespected, right? But all those things still have an effect on me and make me feel a certain way. So I need to explain myself and say, hey, when you did this, it made me feel like this. And that opened up a whole new chapter in my life, being able to say that I felt something.
And something that I want to say too, that I feel Kelly opened up in a huge way for women, is she gave women a voice to finally sit in ourselves and sit in our bodies and acknowledge what we need from that place of this, like to own that and to give that a voice. And then I feel the next phase of that is once we are able to own our needs and what we need, and we put ourselves out there, which what Kelly did was completely put herself out there in a totally vulnerable way to say, this is what I need, and I'm willing to just put this out there. And it gave a huge space for more women to be able to stand up and own that themselves. And then what I discovered through owning that and like revealing my heart is it gives me a chance to go into my heart and to actually see the value of my emotions, because the truth is I didn't value my emotions. I didn't understand the value of my heart. And so to go to a man and try to tell him, hear me, hear me, hear me, hear me, and I'm completely outside of myself and not embodied and owning what I need and the value of my emotions and my heart, yeah, it's going to be very difficult for a man to receive that. And so when we can come from that place of touching the core of who we are and expressing that with men from a grounded place, it gives more of a space for them to receive what we need and hear what we need.
Well, it's like, it's amazing to hear you say that, because when I did this, I didn't know, really what I was doing. I just knew what I was feeling, and I just felt like in one minute women were talking about what they need, and in the next minute they were like trying to be all strong, like we don't need you or fuck you or whatever, and I'm just like, do you even hear yourselves? Like, you're really afraid to have needs, and our whole culture is afraid to have any needs or to be able to rely on other people. And it's in some ways it's really sad. It's like we're totally isolating ourselves, and I don't want to be isolated. Like, I don't want to be like in denial about what I need and what I feel. And I feel like I can be strong and I can be powerful as a woman. I can totally be embodied and powerful and still have needs.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So to take this broader perspective, I feel like, yesterday I went with my sister to a friend's place, and she's this woman that has 2 sons, and one is 15 and one is 18. And I was hanging out with them, and all of a sudden her son came into the house and was like, "Mom, I want a new phone." And she was like, "You already have an iPhone 5. Why do you want a new phone?" He's like, "Well, the new Galaxy S5 is even better, and so I need it, and I can't be happy until I have it." And I was listening to this, and I was just kind of like, is this like? I was looking at my sister and her friend. I was like, is this guy like being for real right now, or is he just messing, like trying to pull a string? Anyways, and then okay, so when we walked out, my sister was like, "Rahul, you used to be like that." And I was like, I don't even remember being that way, but she was like, "You were that way. You used to like use anything you could to get what you wanted." It was like emotional dysfunction to the max, right? And I was like, okay, well, and so her husband, like, she's divorced, and my sister's friend, and her husband was like that too. So her sons are like embodying 2 sides of her husband, who was super emotionally dysfunctional, had no way like of communicating with her, and would just abuse her emotionally. Like, that was how he manipulated her. And so I was reflecting on this, and I was like, wow, just looking at my own journey and how I've integrated, and how I've, as a man, with all these identities and these ideas of what it means to be a man, has gone through these phases of integrating and dissolving each one of those things. Even the idea of what it means to be macho. And this is when we go broader perspective, because I feel like I was reflecting on this yesterday too after having that experience. I was like, it's amazing how Kelly, for example, Andrea, for example, and all the people that are doing this work and sharing their voices and what's coming through from the infinite, if you will, is pushing forward consciousness, and like this idea of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman in relationship with a man is actually completely transforming. And that to me is the embodiment of spiritual activism, right? It's like you're showing up and speaking your truth, and everything on the planet is changing. Like, I looked at that and I was like, I can't believe I used to be that way. But because of other people's spiritual activism, I am who I am now, and I can actually sit with a woman and be who I am and not feel like I need to change because I need to be some idea, or I don't understand her and I can't communicate with her because she's speaking and feeling and I'm not. I recently got the reflection from a woman. She was like, "Rahul," I was like, "it's so nice to speak with a woman who can be crystal clear within her communication and actually translate her feelings." And then she was like, "It's so nice to be with a man who can understand his feelings." Exactly. And so like that is a reflection of this whole movement forward in consciousness.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment on that. David and I were having, this is the exact discussion we were having today on our drive over here. And, I was thinking about when we were talking about, so the color purple thing, how, oh God, the purple, gee, like, why is there purple everywhere? And it's like that programming that we're conditioned with. And I love to write poetry, I love to write music and to sing and to dance, and these things are traditionally manly, but in our society today they've become unmanly, they've become very feminine. And so you look back at the Renaissance and those periods, and you look at some of the great men and the great authors and narrators and poets, and you're going, that's what a real man is. And now I'm looking at it going, as I say these things to other people who aren't aware or conscious or who are still being driven by this social programming, it's like, oh, you're a poet, and that's gay, and it's like, wow, I can't, express my feelings and emotions to you through art without being a homosexual. Like that's it. That's the end game. Like, wow, how narrow-minded. And and it doesn't matter. Like, I really could care less about anybody's sexuality. Your expression of that is yours and yours alone. But at the end of the day, as long as we're using these negative terminologies for an expression of feelings and causing men, boys, to feel like they're not allowed to step up and express themselves emotionally and spiritually, we are handicapping them for life. And that's not acceptable.
I have a question for you guys. So I've been noticing this other, well, it's part of this too. It's like the whole congealing of and the dissolution of like these societal ideas that we've been programmed with since we were, born, like watching advertisements and television shows and looking at magazines. But like I've noticed that there's been a shitload of posts and like even like major magazines now are like portraying women in their natural form. Yeah. Right? So what do you guys think about that? Like, have y'all noticed that too? Like, it's like Cosmo recently released a 17 women breastfeeding. Like, what does it actually look like for a woman to be in that?
I'd love to see that article, actually.
Like women.
Send us all this. I haven't seen it.
I will. Yeah. I was looking at this and I was like, this is amazing. Like that even major magazines. I can just feel the undercurrent of like evolution, if you will, in that happening. It's like it's just.
Well,
my parents would have been like, "What the fuck are you show? Like, what is this?"
every cycle, obviously comes back to the beginning. Like,
are you equipped to talk about cycles, David?
Yeah. I'm about to talk about the menstrual cycle in a second. Shut up. No, but even in
that's funny. Sorry.
If the weather starts or we start abusing the environment, right, and we're not doing what it's supposed to do. The storms start to get violent, and it's really in an attempt to get things back to normal again, right? And so for so long, we've had this program about what a woman should look like apparently a plastic doll, what a man should be, what a woman's body should look like, the way a woman should, conduct herself, and, what's ladylike, what is not. And it hasn't been right. I don't know how, there's no other way to put that. It just hasn't been right, not for men or for women. And so now we've got this storm, this influx of, this wave, like Rahul was saying, of all this stuff either on Facebook or in books, magazines, of like, oh, look at this new fad, a natural woman. I guess that's new, and there's far more beautiful natural women out there than, these stick figures walking around eating rice, a kernel of rice for breakfast, whatever it is. I find it disgusting. Andrea made a post up, and I sent her a message because it was way too long for me to post on Facebook and still respect myself. So to that point, like I've been ever since I was a kid, like I never liked that stuff, and now I think the natural balance is starting to reset itself, or at least the storms are brewing to reset that, and get rid of what's messing up our environment.
Yeah, I would say for me. No, go ahead.
Andrea.
Go ahead.
No,
well,
please. I can wait.
I was going to say for me, just definitely always being just a curvy sort of, I don't even want to say thick because it doesn't even feel right anymore, but I used to consider myself a thick woman, booty, curves, the whole thing. And for most of my life, I was definitely trying to make myself something I wasn't. And so, definitely over the last few years, I've seen the evolution of embracing all different forms of women, and it really has affected me because it has allowed me to let go of needing to be a specific way that we're told we need to be in order to get worth, and in order to be deemed worthy enough for love from a man or from the world. And so the thing that I'm loving more than anything, even more like beyond the embrace of curvy women or thick, whatever it is that it's giving an opportunity for all shapes of women, for us to see, and men too, the beauty in all these different forms and shapes and figures and looks, and seeing like the innate beauty of what it means to be human. And so I think when we have this perspective of how unique we all are, to be able to see that more and to embrace that more gives us an opportunity to connect more to what makes us each one, and simultaneously feeling our unique individuality.
Boom.
Yeah, I like that.
Kelly, you had a thought. Kelly, you had a thought going into that, didn't you?
Yes, you did.
I feel like we're entering an age where, what Rahul was talking about and what David was talking about, it's really fascinating because I feel like what's happening is that we're chipping away at the things that aren't real anymore, like the illusions that we all carry, the personas and everything, and what's wanting to burst out is just the basic nature of who we all are and what we all want. Because if you think about it, everything else is bullshit. Like, if it's not serving us, if we're not able to, to stand in our truth, to get our needs met, to have the lives we want, all these self-help books, people trying to train people how to live, how to eat, how to think, how to be. It's like, it's all so crazy making. And the reality is that everything that we want and everything that we need is inside of us. And no one, needs to validate that. And I think we are entering an age where we're able to stand in all of that. I have this really interesting story. So I went to Dunton Hot Springs this past weekend, and I ate mushrooms for the first time in, God, a year and a half. And normally on psychedelics, I was terrified to look at myself in the mirror because I would just look at every ugly aspect of my face, right? And this time I looked at myself in the mirror, and I swear to God, I saw all my ancestors in my face, and it was instead of them all competing to be me or to be who is this? I was listen, everybody just relax. You're all in there. I see you now. I see me. I'm made up of me. But it was so amazing. But I was seeing a man in there or a woman in there or an ugly old ancestor, and I was ugh, I don't, go away. But this time I was just loving them all, and I was this is amazing. I am made up of so many generations and lifetimes and peoples and stories. And yes, on some level I'm my own person, but at the same time, I am all these crazy people inside of me. And it was just amazing to look at myself for the first time and to not have judgment about when I look like a man or when my nose is going in that direction, or you know what I'm saying, just to be able to be hey everybody, what's going on? It's a party in my body. Woo! That's amazing.
That's awesome.
And Kelly, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that speaks so beautifully to the power of the perception of self. And so oftentimes we go down, because when you take a hallucinogen like that, it is going to exponentially express what you feel on a daily basis. So if you're feeling negative, if you're feeling like you're not in love with you, then that's exactly what's going to be expressed. And so what you've done is actually begun to restructure your own consciousness, your own perception, to begin to love yourself. And through that self-love, and taking a hallucinogen, you've now connected with a part of yourself, and you can see the beauty in what used to be ugly. And so that shift is what we're all looking for. And I've done a lot of hallucinogens in my past, and I don't recommend them to people who are not ready to use them, because they will open up Pandora's box. And if you're not ready for that, then that's not a place that you want to be. However, if you've created this sense of self-love, you can see some perceptions that would be beyond your ability. So, just to see how that affected you, and to see how that completely shifted for you after doing the real work of self-love and self-recreation is really, that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it was
and I just want to say, sorry, Rob, really quick. I just wanted to say that I'm sitting here and I keep watching Kelly, and you just have this huge smile. I can feel your joy just stemming from the deepest part of you, and it is truly lighting up my heart. I just keep watching you, and I just think to have a woman like you walking in the world, whatever you look like, whatever they see, when you feel that from a woman and her heart's open and she's just beaming, it takes beauty beyond words. It's like there are no words. You can feel it, and it gives people a space to feel themselves and remember who they are. So we need more women and men, of course, too. Yes, men, but just in the acknowledgement of all of Kelly's womanness. More women we can have walking around the world like that. Dang.
And there's something to be said for
one of
that.
the other aspects of that whole trip was that I always felt like a man in a woman's body. Like, I've always felt like a man in a woman's body. And so when I was totally shrinking, I had this moment of being like, at one point I was like so embodied, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a girl. Like, oh, this is so interesting. This is so fascinating to be a woman. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I mean, I think that like maybe on some level, soul, like I've been a man a lot. And so it's just really funny because I feel like when I said this is my coming out party, it's like I actually feel like I'm coming into what it is to be a woman. And so maybe there is something about this whole thing that I have always felt like a boy trapped in a girl's body, and now I'm becoming my feminine self, and I'm okay with this sort of dichotomy or whatever it is in me, you know, because like when he was talking earlier, it's like, yes, moving away from this whole concept of man and woman and just being human, it's something that I'm really beginning to understand, and it's pretty fascinating stuff. But thank you, Andrea, for saying that to me. It's really incredible. It's a trip to be me.
I have an Oprah question for you, Kelly. Feels like an Oprah question moving through me. So to wrap this, right? Like, because we're wrapping soon. Yeah. So like you wrote this article. I read it. Amazing. I love all your writing. Right? It's so real. So awesome. And all these people found out who you are and like are now taking into account your voice. And that's a great sign. Is when you're polarizing like that. You know, you really hit on, like, you touched something that's really ripe for all of humanity. Right? So you are now the embodiment of a spiritual activist, right? So what does it mean to you moving forward to continue like showing up for that? Like, what does it mean to you? Like, do you identify with that idea, with that title? Do you take responsibility for that? Like, having 450,000 people hit your page in three days, like, you know, what kind of responsibility comes with the role that you're in now?
Such an Oprah question. I love it.
Right?
It's insane because when this started happening, I basically made an effort to respond to everybody who reached out to me because, you know, I don't feel like I'm doing this alone. Like, even though, you know, I had these ideas and I had these feelings, it's like I'm not just an ego. I'm not just a self. I'm not just this one person who has all this amazing shit going on inside of me. It's like I love to connect. And so for me, like, what I want to do is I want to be one voice in a stream, like a collective, like what's happening here, of banding together to like raise the conscious awareness of humanity, because ultimately, like, everybody wants what they want and everybody is dying to be free. And how that plays out for people and the self-acceptance and the judgment, it's like, you know, it's like enough of the self-enslavement, and in whatever capacity I can join forces with other people who want to do that, like, I am all about it. Like, what other reason are we here than to wake up? You know what I'm saying? To be our true authentic selves. On some level, like, we are all pushing against things that aren't real, and we have to, like, break out of that, and I don't think that any of us can do it alone. So I guess, like, what I want to create is I want to create a community of people who hold the space for people to, like, deal with their shit, because it's intense. Like, I dealt with all of it on my own, and I'm grateful on some level that, I mean, I had the inner strength or whatever I have, you know, I have inside of myself, but some people don't have that. And some people have criticized me and tell me, like, you know, don't even bother with people who don't get it. And I'm basically like, those are the people who need the most help. You know, the people that don't even understand that there's a separate reality, like, other than the one that they're living in, that they can actually get their needs met. Like, when Andrea was talking, I'm like, I would have never known, had she not spoke up, that she even had any struggles. You know what I mean? And so it's just, it feels like I don't have a concrete idea of how I want to move forward. I'm, like, hoping to connect with so many people to help shape this. Like, I don't want to do this by myself. You know what I mean?
And we can't. And yeah, absolutely. And that was the very reason we started this, is to link arms and join together to kind of raise a flag and say, guys, enough is enough. The social programming that is destroying our world is quite literally within our grasp to change, and we cannot do it alone. We have to step up and really be our biggest selves. And to your point, you know, it's like we're all spinning in this like massive amount of chaos, and the people who are not awake yet are the very people, you know, it's like our greatest spiritual teachers. They didn't shy away from the whores. They didn't shy away from the poor. Those were the people they went to. Those were their people. And so that's what, to me, to answer your question, Rahul, from my perspective, that's what spiritual activism is for me. It's getting out there, linking arms with people who are awake now, who want to help people who don't necessarily know how to wake up, because that's our job. And I think, who said it last week? Was it? It was Preston. We are beyond the age of the guru. We are beyond the age of the one leader. This is a new generation. We have the power to do this together. It's not about me or you or you or you. It's about us. And this is not, you know, the me generation is over. Sorry, Coach.
Yeah, Preston often says community is the new money.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I
love that.
I mean, I feel the same way as far as what it means to be a spiritual activist.
Everybody has a different way of looking at stuff. Nice.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
No, I was just gonna say, you know, when it happens, you're not really aware that you're doing it. Kind of the way, you know, she said that she just wrote it, she was just writing it, she was fed it, whatever it is, and then the reason it touched so many people is because it was her. What she was touching was herself, right, her soul, maybe for the first time. And then, I mean, I know that's what spoke to a lot of people when we started Kick-Ass Dad, right? And then we started getting responses from them. And until we actually got a response, I didn't feel a responsibility to anybody, right? We were just doing it. We were just talking. I was just being myself. Mike was being himself. And then when people started to respond, that's when the responsibility part kicked in. But it wasn't in the way that I originally expected. It was once people started responding, and then I had to reply. You know, and Mike was there for some of the first of them. All of a sudden, I was frozen. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say. Like, what should I say to her or him? You know, and so I started to, you know, construct this politically correct and, you know, soapbox answer. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, that's not, you know, the responsibility here is to continue to be yourself. You know, I find, because that's what's going to speak to other people, right? They're going to identify, because you couldn't possibly be the only person on the planet that feels that way. That's why they originally connected in the first place. So we're speaking to people out there that don't have a voice yet or haven't heard their own voice yet, and they realize that's them. So the responsibility I feel of a spiritual activist, in addition to, you know, what it means to be one, but the responsibility, I believe, is to continue to be yourself, and I think that's the only way to, you know, to reach other people.
Yeah.
I love that, David. So true.
It was awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah, Captain. Captain, my captain. You guys are fantastic. I absolutely adore each of you. Thank you for joining us for the show today. Andrea, how can we find you?
Soulfulfilled.com or anywhere in social media, Andrea DiLorenzo. Just type it in, you'll find me.
Captain Awesome, where can we find you?
In my Marvel comic, which is coming out. No, kickassdad.org.
What color pants do you wear?
What's that?
What color pants do you wear?
Purple.
Pants.
Purple.
And he has Captain Awesome underoos as well. Kelly, where can we find you?
At kellymarceau.com.
EAU.
EAU.
EAU. Marceau. Rahul, how can we find you, brother?
TheInvincibleMan.com or my name, RahulBhambhani.com.
Beautiful. You can also find me at kickassdad.org. You guys have been phenomenal. This has been The Spiritual Activist. We look forward to breaking paradigms and creating that shift necessary to, well, let's just say it, enlighten the world.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Be well.
Thank you so much, guys.
Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye, you too.
So are we no longer
live?
On. We're still live. No longer live?
Stop broadcasting.